This is Nevada Cancer Coalition's Cancer Talks, a public health podcast where we connect with coalition members and partners to learn more about cancer prevention, early detection, and survivorship. Hear about cancer care in Nevada and meet the people who are making an impact. Today, we're being joined by Natalie Stevenson, who's the founder of Cancer Community Clubhouse. And I want to say that I met you not too long after you kind of showed up on the radar in Northern Nevada and were saying, hey, we need to get something going for survivors in the community. Was that like 5 years ago?
Yeah, yeah. 5 almost. So I moved back to Reno in July of 2020, and we started working on CCC by December of 2020. We had our nonprofit, all the paperwork getting ready to go in and all of that. So I think we met Nevada Cancer Coalition shortly. I mean, it was all right in between that time.
Yeah, you just moved back to Reno and just jumped right into it.
Yeah, well, in fairness, I had nothing else to do. And I'll explain that for the audience a little bit. I left. I had been living down in Dallas and I was born and raised in Reno. I couldn't wait to come back to Reno, but I had to wait until my son graduated high school. Well, at the same time my son graduated high school, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And I tried to continue to work in my job. I was an investment specialist at a financial firm in Dallas, and I loved my job. It was a very difficult job to continue with as I was trying to start these stage 4 medications. And so I stopped working part-time after about a year of going through that treatment and just decided that I wouldn't be able to continue to work through the treatment and had to sell my home. And thank goodness my son was graduating high school. So that's what got me back home to Reno was stage 4 cancer. So when I say I didn't really have anything else to work on, here I was transplanted into this region that I hadn't lived in for 20 years, now with stage 4 cancer, and I just felt like I still had so much to offer, but there was just no chance I would be able to continue to be employed. So what my passion project became was building the local cancer community through Cancer Community Clubhouse.
Was there a specific moment or experience that really made you realize, like, we need to build this in this community?
Yeah, yeah, so going backwards in the story a little bit more, so I was originally diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I did detect the tumor when I was 32 years old. I did go get a mammogram. The mammogram did not see, and the ultrasound did not see the tumor that I felt. And so they had said, hey, just let us know if something changes, but we think this is probably a cyst that is coming or going with your periods. You probably have nothing to worry about, but let us know if something changes. Well, fast forward 2 years, I felt the lump the entire time. So to me, nothing had changed. I went in for my annual exam, and the gynecologist had said, oh my gosh, when she was doing my breast exam, she said, Natalie, what is this? And I said, that's that lump thing that they already checked it. It's nothing. And she said, "Oh, you've gotta go back and get that checked. This isn't right." And so I went back, and but at that point, it was a stage 3 tumor that they had found. So I went through 2 years of all of the cancer treatment, all the surgeries, everything, which was awful, but I knew that it was gonna end. So I felt like I had this end point, end game, like, if I can get through 2 years, I'm gonna go take a trip to Mexico afterwards, and I'm gonna be done with cancer. Well, that's not what happened to me. Cancer continued to pop up in my life in really nasty kinds of ways, dealing with side effects from treatments and emotional side effects that had never really been addressed through my entire treatment. And I went back to my care team and I let them know that I was really suffering, and they just didn't have anything for me. They were kind of like, "Well, go talk to a therapist." Well, do you have any therapists who understand what it's like for a 34-year-old single mom to go through all of this that I just went through? That was traumatic. And they didn't really even have a therapist for me to talk to. So I just kind of suffered for the next 4 years. And it wasn't until I was diagnosed stage 4 that the oncologist at that point, I switched oncologists, and the oncologist said, "Oh my gosh, Natalie, you need to go get connected with this cancer support community that exists in Dallas." And I was honestly, Kristen, I was kind of frustrated. Why did nobody tell me that there was a community of people where I could go get support and where I could go find people that were my age going through this and just get that support until I was diagnosed stage 4? That's when somebody finally mentioned the community.
Uh, I mean, there's no stage 4 gateway that opens the door to more resources. I mean, that certainly shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, so I just suffered for the next few years. Then I found this community and it absolutely changed my life. It changed my ability to cope with stage 4 cancer. I was now in a support group with other people with stage 4 cancer who had been on the medications that I was now going to have to start taking, and they were helping me cope and deal with the side effects of those medications. So I found that it's a national organization called Cancer Support Community. They have affiliates all across the US. There is not an affiliate in Reno or Northern Nevada. I don't in Southern Nevada, I don't think either. But that's why when I moved to Reno, I started going, okay, where's this survivorship group? And so I started just digging, trying to find what's going on in Reno. And I came up just so empty handed. And so that's when I started to just think about this idea. What would it take for me to build what I came from in Texas? What would that take for me to start building that here? And that's how all of this began.
I think you're so right. It's such a decentralized kind of network of support groups and resources across Nevada that there's no kind of centralized location where survivors can kind of come and congregate. I think that that's partly because we have a really decentralized healthcare system. We don't have like a big, MD Anderson or Kaiser or a big health network that has care across the state. It's kind of bits and pieces, and I think that that's the same with a lot of our how survivorship resources have been developed is it's bits and pieces. One group offers support groups for prostate cancer, and there's another that's just breast cancer, and another that's, potentially just a third type of cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, or something. Cancer Community Clubhouse is really a more centralized location for people with all different types of cancers. But really, for people that are unfamiliar with the organization, what does CCC actually provide and do in
Yeah,
the community?
sure. I think one thing that's kind of important to bring into the picture is just this talk about survivorship. Back a long time ago when all this money was going into research and all of that, which is still very important, people like me, for example, I am alive today and I'm cancer free today, having had stage 4 terminal cancer. And it's because of novel therapies that have come out. So, because these therapies are actually keeping people alive, we have to shift our focus now to the whole spectrum of life of people who are still living post all of this treatment. So one one important detail that I think is it just brings up the difference between, like you said, the medical facilities versus a community-based cancer survivorship program. At the medical facilities, they are so fully overrun. There is so much cancer. You walk into any cancer facility and it's packed and they're pushing people in and out. They are not trying to hold on to taking care of survivors for the long run. They need to get those people treated, cancer gone, and move them back out into the community. So that's why a community based organization like Cancer Community Clubhouse is so important to survivorship, is because the medical facilities cannot take on all this burden for the rest of people's lives. So, and the reason it's the rest of people's lives is, I'll just use myself as an example, the chemotherapy that I received at 34 years old, it is going to do heart damage to me. It's a matter of when, right? So I still need to be managed, and I am 13 years past that chemotherapy. Now is when I'm going to have to, continue to be managed medically with those things. So for me to be able to have access to a community based organization, first of all, most survivors aren't even aware that they need to stay on top of their medical stuff in those kinds of ways. A lot of times I talk about my experience and I say, oh, yeah, I had to get in with a heart doctor and establish with a heart doctor because of my chemo. And other survivors are going, wait, what are you talking about? So there's this education that also happens at a community center where we're helping each other just live our best survivorship. You had asked me specifically about Cancer Community Clubhouse, so I'll explain a little bit about what we do. We're located in Sparks off of Pyramid and Greenbrae. We have a little clubhouse. It's open to anybody affected by any type of cancer, and it doesn't matter if you're currently in treatment. We are and from you are considered a survivor from the moment of diagnosis through the rest of your life. So if you're in treatment, if you're post-treatment, if you're 10 years post-treatment, but you never had the opportunity to rehabilitate your body, your mind, your spirit, during that experience, come to the clubhouse. We have fitness rehabilitation programs that are run by cancer exercise specialist trainers that can help people really build the muscle, put it back on their bodies, get the range of motion back post surgery, all those things. We have a PhD level therapist who is doing support, who is running, facilitating support groups, also mental health specific groups. We go through different workbooks or different books that can just help people have a better jumping off point into their survivorship. And Dr. Souza facilitates all of those mental health groups for us. We also partner with UNR's Community Behavioral Health Collaborative to offer free individual and family therapy through those counselors in training. We're able to offer that for free. And then we also do wellness practices like yoga, qigong, sound bath, art. I tell people the purpose of all of the wellness, it's really to calm our nervous systems. When you're going through these treatments, your nervous system is on constant high alert. So being able to come and do a gentle yoga, practice qigong, sit and lay there for a sound bath, all of those things are ways that we can bring our nervous system back into like this a little bit more normal alignment while we're going through these traumatic things.
Yeah. And I feel like over time, Cancer Community Clubhouse has grown. I mean, I recall when you didn't have a space and you were doing the sound baths, I think there were some journaling workshops I remember seeing.
Yeah.
But how has how has the Clubhouse evolved since it first launched? I mean, as you've
Yeah.
grown, what have you been able to add? And what is
Yeah.
the community asking that you add?
Uh-huh. Yeah, those are all great questions. So when we first started, it was really just a grassroots situation. I just said, hey, we're going to try to get survivors together. Does anybody want to help out? And we had medical professionals jump on board. They were like, yes, I love this idea. Let's go. We started to get some of our founding donors that really helped us be able to rent space and to pay practitioners and those sorts of things. We started out very small, renting space at a yoga studio in town. yeah, that journaling workshop that we offered was fantastic. I'd love to bring that back. The facilitator for that actually moved away, so we haven't done that, but we got a clubhouse space about 2 it may 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago that we got a space, and once we got that space, everything just took off. Our capacity filled up very quickly in all of our programs. The other thing that happened in our community for people that live in Northern Nevada, there used to be a cancer rehab program that was run out of St. Mary's Fitness Center, and the cancer exercise specialists were facilitating the groups in at the St. Mary's Fitness Center. Well, that fitness center closed down, and so we really struggled to keep that exercise program here locally. Well, it just so happened that we ended up getting this clubhouse space, and we received a grant from the Home Depot Foundation, and they installed a gym in our space so that we could bring over the cancer rehab program and start doing it out of the clubhouse. So we started our fitness program about a year and a half ago. That's taken off. We doubled that program within about 3 months of it launching. We doubled, so we have 2 morning groups now and 2 evening groups, so that's fantastic. We still work with the same trainers that were over at St. Mary's Fitness, so there's been a lot of continuity in the fitness program. But other than that, we received a really generous grant about a year and a half ago for our mental health. So that's what allowed us to bring in a PhD, a doctor, who is actually a survivor herself to facilitate our mental health groups. That's really important to me is that people have the highest quality when it comes to the facilitators.
Well, and I love the fact that the mental health support comes from someone with lived experience.
Mhm.
So it's a level of empathy that I think, only someone who's been there can really provide and give some perspective through their own journey. So I think that that's fantastic. And I think that, I think some people poo-poo the need for mental health support, with a cancer diagnosis and following cancer treatment. I know, like, my dad, he had cancer, and I can't imagine a point at any time where he would go and sit in a support group or talk to a mental health professional. But I think that and it's not for everyone, but I think for those people that are struggling, it is such a huge value. And it can be difficult to find someone to provide that kind of mental health support focused on cancer and your health. I mean, so many people focus on, the stresses of work or marriage and relationships, which do get impacted by a cancer diagnosis. But I think that there's this whole other layer in there. So I love that lived experience.
Yeah. And one thing I think about the people who are a little bit resistant to this mental health idea, because I certainly understand that, we we have people who come and work out, and that is changing their mental health. That's kind of an entry point for not being necessarily a support group. But every time you come work out with your group, people are talking about their scans or their upcoming tests that they're nervous about, or just what's going on with them with cancer. It is its own level of mental health support. Plus, with all the evidence that we know is coming out with fitness and how it's just helping across the board reduce recurrence and reduce mortality, like all the great benefits, people are using the workouts, the fitness program as like an entry point to mental health services,
Yeah.
which is kind of
That
cool.
that makes absolute sense. I mean, I believe it was Elle Woods in Legally Blonde that says exercise releases endorphins and endorphins make people happy. So, yeah, I can completely see that, and you're right, I've read multiple studies. I know there was a recent study that just came out about colorectal cancer and fitness, and people who participate in exercise programs following colorectal cancer diagnosis have much longer survivorship and much better outcomes from doing that sort of exercise, and I think that, obviously, the average person isn't reading the level of academic research on outcomes, but I think just even saying, "Hey, come and move your body a little," it will resonate with people.
Yeah. What I love the most about Cancer Fit is that we meet people where they are. So we've got people who are in chemo who are still coming and moving their bodies the little bit that they feel like they have the energy for, right? And then even me, I'm a great example. I have chronic rib fractures because of where my stage 4 cancer ended up. And that really, I wouldn't go to a regular gym to go work out because I just have so many, you know, um, things that have to be worked around. Like I can't do all the exercises because of the sensitivity of my ribs. So these trainers, I mean, when you come to Cancer Fit, you never feel like you have to keep up with the person next to you. We have people working out at a high level, a kind of a middle level, and then also at a lower level. We have people who sit in chairs and do the workouts from chairs because any little bit of muscle that we can build is going to benefit us, regardless if we're doing the whole high impact thing or if we're sitting in a chair just lifting weights.
Yeah. So, what surprises people most when they first walk through the doors?
Uh, I would say, first of all, one of the things I hear is that from the outside, you would never expect when you walk through the doors, people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's so comfortable in here. It's set up very beautifully. It's not clinical. You do not feel like you have cancer when you walk through those doors." That's fantastic. The second most common thing that I hear is, "I didn't even know how badly I needed this." So I think sometimes people will say, "Oh, there's a Cancer Fit group that I can go join. Let me go join that." And then they join it and their life changes. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I needed this the whole time, but I didn't even know how much I needed this." That this was going to be the catalyst of change for really me jumping off in my survivorship.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different activities that I know the clubhouse does, but survivors don't have to participate in all of them.
No,
I mean, I think even just dipping their toes in it and then, finding what's a fit and what works for them and what doesn't. I love that. And I would assume that it's not all just women either. I mean, I know a lot of times there's always, it seems like, more support groups for women, and there's more support resources for women. And I've kind of always likened that to, well, men just kind of tough it out and
yeah.
make it through. But do you see that there are as many men participating in clubhouse programs as women?
No, we definitely are like probably 90% women. However, we've tried a couple of things. We have men that participate in every single one of our programs, first of all. But generally, there's just one. Occasionally, we might have two in the room at the same time. But generally, it'll be one man with a whole bunch of women. Now, the men, we are starting to get them together. What is going to bring men to the clubhouse? Because yoga's not yoga, qigong, those aren't going to bring men to the clubhouse. you know? So we have a survivorship committee. Those are actual survivors that want to be a part of growing the clubhouse and influencing how we move forward with the clubhouse. And we have one man on that committee who is dead set. He is like, "Natalie, whatever we can do to get men through here, I am going to be here. I'm going to show up." So he really wants to get men at the clubhouse. Would we have a little bit of trouble thinking about what do the men want to come for? What is going to bring men with cancer to the clubhouse, it's not going to be a mental health group. It's not going to be a support group. It's not Qigong and yoga. But we do have some ideas of some ways that we can start getting the men together and getting them more involved. So I would guess over the next 6 months, we will see a real push to try to get all the men in the community together to do something that is more masculine.
And, it's funny because I think about what you said that people come to the clubhouse and say, "I didn't know that this is what I needed." And I think for men, there's this, like I said, there's this macho kind of societal whatever that men, don't go to therapy, or men don't do yoga and they don't need, a sound bath or what have you. But, they're people too. And perhaps they don't think that they need it. And perhaps if they tried it, they would find that, wow, this is really going to help me and I really enjoy this. But I agree. I mean, you need something else that's going to get them to dip their toe before they launch into doing different things. As you were speaking, I was thinking, oh, maybe like a card game or like a game night or something. I know my dad plays bridge all the time. I don't know if how many people play bridge, but I can just imagine, having some sort of a game night that invites conversation and is kind of low barrier. I think it's interesting that there's just this kind of disconnect with men on participating in these things that can really help them feel so much less isolated in what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I am noticing just really within the last couple of months, we're getting more men referred to our programs from a mental health therapist will refer men to the programs, and then the men come, and even if it's just a matter of connecting those men together with a couple of them to be able to talk or for peer mentorship or whatever, that's fantastic. So I think my point is that if the medical providers are not only referring stage 4 people, women, right? Women in stage 4 is where we get tons of referrals, but actually bringing that up. If a man is sitting there in front of their doctor and their doctor says, "You know what? You should really go find some other men that are going through this and go to CCC and you'll find that." Those men are more likely to contact me and walk through the doors. I mean, I'm not a man, so how is it they're not gonna come and get their support from me directly, right? But we can start to build that community alongside all of these women that are showing up for themselves.
Yeah. So, can you share a story with me that captures some of the impact that the clubhouse has had on someone's life?
Okay. I do have permission to share this story, and it is one of my favorites. We have a young woman who's in her early 30s. She had just had her second baby, and so she had a 6 month old and I think a 2.5 year old at the time. And she noticed that she had a lump in her breast while she was nursing, and the doctors, multiple, not just one doctor, but like 3 different doctors told her nothing was wrong with what was happening and that it was just because she was breastfeeding. Well, eventually she's going, "I don't trust this. Something is definitely wrong here." And her husband forced her to continue to get it looked at. It ended up being triple negative breast cancer. So she had 2 little babies and went through all of her cancer treatment for triple negative. After she finished her treatment, and she really went through her treatment with her head held high, like, "I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna win, I've gotta win for my babies," you know? And she went through all of her treatment, and next thing you know, she cannot get out of bed. She's done with treatment, and the emotional impact finally hit her. And we see this almost across the board. If you are not getting services during your treatment, the crash comes once you are finished. And we can avoid that crash if we get people services during all of this experience, right? So that it's not so we can work on it as we go, as opposed to like, "Oh my gosh, I'm done. I thought my life was gonna go back to normal," and then it doesn't, and severe depression, major anxiety hits. That happened to her, and she was in bed day after day, couldn't get out of bed. She's like, "My poor kids, here I just fought to save my life for my children, and I can't even get out of bed anymore to take care of my children." Well, one day she's in bed. Her husband's trying to help her cope with this the best he can. And he brings his phone and sets it by her on the bed and says, "I think you should look at this." And she picks up the phone and she sees Cancer Community Clubhouse, and on our website, all the support. She reads my story. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only young woman that went through this, as did I when I went through my situation," right? She decides to come. There was a support group that week. And so she decides, "I'm going to go try this support group." She pulls up to the clubhouse and sits in her car and just cannot get out of the car. She can't walk through those doors by herself. So she ends up going home that day, and I do hear that a lot, Kristen. People come to the parking lot and they just can't walk through the doors. That's pretty common. We tell people, "Bring a friend, bring a family member. We are here to support your whole ecosystem. All of you guys are going through this. It's not just the survivor. Come with your people to pretty much any of the things that we offer at CCC are open to support people also." Well, a week goes by, we have another support group. She shows up. She is able to walk through that door that time and meets me for the first time. She said from that moment of walking through our doors, she has never had depression again the way that she was sitting in bed all of those days, because she all of a sudden realized, "I am not alone and I need to get this support so that I can really process my whole situation." So she started shortly after that. Really has such a passion for that not happening to anybody else, as do I. What happened to me should not have happened, and it could have totally been avoided. With a little bit of extra support, what happened to me could have been avoided. And it's the same thing as what happened to her that could have been avoided had somebody referred her the moment she was diagnosed to these supportive programs while she was going through all of her treatment. So she's a huge believer in CCC. She did start to try to get all of the young adults together for a young adults group. It kind of didn't take off, but she is really, really passionate about making sure that people are not left high and dry once they finish their treatment, which is so cool. So,
Yeah, that is awesome, and I think there is kind of, I think, this, like, I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna fight, and people don't realize that once they kind of have, I guess, they feel that they've put cancer behind them, like, "I'm done with treatment, I rang the bell, I'm done with it." I don't think that they necessarily anticipate that cancer, whether they want it to or not, has become a part of who they are and what they've experienced. It's a part of their story. And it's kind of you can't really just push it down. And I think you have to process the grief. I
yes,
think that people don't realize necessarily that there's a grief involved with grieving who you were before and coming to terms with who you are following treatment, because you are a different person. You've experienced different things, and it's something that you didn't choose. And so I think where that grief comes in, I agree with you that postponing that realization, postponing that grieving process rather than going through it as you're experiencing it and understanding it, I think can be debilitating for people.
mhm, yes,
So, yeah, I that's just a day-to-day reality that I think people just don't anticipate.
yeah. And I think the other thing is, like, yes, from an emotional standpoint, But also, what about a medical standpoint? A lot of us who are in our survivorship, we end up on long-term medications to try to keep the cancer away, or long-term hormone suppression to keep the cancer away. And those are incredibly impactful, and the consequences on our physical human bodies for shutting down hormones, that's a big deal. And, you know, part of my story was that the medication was so hard for me to handle and tolerate that I finally threw my hands up and I was like, I am not going to take this medication anymore. I have to have quality of life. Well, I was one of them that I needed the medication to keep the cancer away, so the cancer came back. So, my hope is that we as a community can help people stay on their medications for as long as possible, and the only way we can do that is by helping them with their emotional side effects, with their physical side effects. I hear people say, "Well, when I complain to my doctor about how much pain I'm in or whatever, the doctor is saying, "Well, do you want cancer to come back or do you not?" And that's like that's how they're some of them are dealing with this issue of medications that are really causing a low quality of life. Well, that's not really fair. Nobody wants cancer to come back, but we can help people cope with the side effects of the medication by getting them into physical therapy to help with their pain, by getting them into a fitness program to help with those things, by connecting them to mental health therapists who know specifically about cancer and about what these things do for the long run. So our medical professionals again can have a lot of impact on people staying compliant to their medications instead of just saying, do you want it to come back or do you not want it to come back? No, help me cope with the side effects. And we do that in our community.
It's tough. I feel like doctors are, they're focused on treat the cancer,
Yep.
not treat the patient. And it's tough when, again, like you said, they're so busy. They've got so many people coming in and they're really great at treating the cancer. And we just need to find that component of if you can't treat the patient, then ask for help. Refer somebody to help to get the rest of that treatment.
That refer, 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 refer. That's all I would love. Nobody is asking. Those oncologists are working their tails off trying to keep people cancer free and to treat the cancer. Like I said at the beginning of this, those cancer centers are packed full. They need to focus. I would not be here today if my doctor didn't have the ability to treat my cancer, right? But the oncologist doesn't have to be the end all of everything. It's about referring. It's about the oncologist saying, oh my gosh, I can tell that you're really struggling with this medication. Let me refer you to this. Let me refer you to that. All it has to be is a referral or a conversation. I am really happy that there are a lot more nurse navigators are popping up, a lot more of them. So people are being referred through those navigators to supportive programs, but a doctor doesn't have to take on the entire burden of all of this. They just need to have the sense of mind to understand what somebody might be going through and then simply refer out. People can refer just to the community and we get them referred out to mental health therapists. I have a whole list of therapists that are seeing our cancer patients, and the patients are going, they get it, they're good. Not for medical stuff. For medical stuff, I think they should be referring more of the physical therapy, more management, things like that. I myself got into a management doctor. I'm so anti drugs, medication. They've done a lot of damage to my body. I walked in and I said, I will not take anything, but I'm in a lot of pain. Is there any way that, like, do you have anything new that you could help me with? And this doctor worked with me for the last year and a half. I am out of pain right now for the first time in 6 years because this pain doctor had thoughts on what to do about my pain, and all it needed was a referral, you know what I mean, to the pain doc who could help.
What are your goals over the next few years on the clubhouse? I mean, what do you have big plans? I know you said you're working on getting more men engaged, but
Yeah.
2 years, 5 years, 10 years out, where do you see Cancer Community Clubhouse?
We're in the process, even 1 year out, we will have more space. We're in the process of doing a mental health expansion right now, to be able to get more services available and just have more space to be able to do more things. We know one thing majorly that we're missing is nutrition. Almost everybody that walks through the clubhouse is saying, I can't eat anything, or my digestion is so messed up that it's hard for me to eat the foods I like. How do I prevent cancer through eating the right nutrition? There needs to be a lot more nutrition education. And while some people can access the dietitian, some of the cancer centers do have a dietitian on staff. We need it to be just accessible to so many more people. So, nutrition, you'll be seeing at the clubhouse within the next year. An expansion as far as our space goes is going to happen within the next year. One thing that is incredibly exciting, and even to the point that we don't even have it put out or marketed yet, but we received a virtual technology grant, and we just set up a hybrid environment at the clubhouse in our group room where people are going to be able to zoom in to the mental health groups and the peer support groups with the therapist. And you're going to be able to see them on Zoom. You'll be able to see all the participants, very lifelike in the clubhouse. But that's going to give access to a number of groups of people. First of all, the people who are on, for example, pain medications or just medications where they can't drive to come into our programs. People in the rural communities will have access to all of these things simply via Zoom and this hybrid environment. Not all of our programs are going to be available, but we'll probably do some of the mindfulness things and definitely all of the mental health groups. So that's going to be a big access point to people who just haven't had access because of transportation or, a variety of things. So we've got lots and lots of great stuff coming up for the clubhouse.
I love that. I love the opportunity to have more people who can't necessarily physically be there participate. And, that's great for survivors, but it also opens the door for you to be able to bring in guest speakers virtually
Mhm.
and do presentations from people who maybe you wouldn't be able to have in person doing a presentation at the clubhouse, and to be able to have that virtual presence with the nutrition programs. We always see a lot of questions about that. What should I eat? People become really focused on their diet when they're diagnosed. And they say, "Oh, I'm cutting out all the sugar and I'm doing this and I'm doing that." But it can be difficult to keep up with those sorts of things. I mean, it's hard enough to eat healthy in your normal day to day, but when you're juggling, medical bills and medical appointments and you're not feeling great and you've got all this other stuff going on, that is seemingly a impossible time to all of a sudden start juicing and doing all of these food
Yeah.
things and monitoring your nutrient intake. So how do you think that this work has changed you personally?
Uh, I would say cancer. I mean, I am not the same person that walked the world 13 years ago, you know? I mean, I came from a investment background. There there wasn't a lot of empathy necessary in my work. There wasn't a lot of, needing to be present for people in difficult circumstances and things like that. It was all just very straightforward, cut and dry, man's world situation stuff. So being able to one of the things that I love about being in the nonprofit space, especially in Reno, I remember my first several meetings with partners. One of them was Amy at Nevada Cancer Coalition, and we're ending these meetings with hugs. I was like, "I love this. This is what I've been missing my whole life," instead of ending meetings like, "Okay, here's your money, shake hands." All of the collaboration that happens between all these nonprofits and everybody working together to really help people. It's developed my empathy, my compassion is just in a totally different place than it ever would have been pre-cancer.
Definitely a different world.
But I feel like life brought me to the point where I am right now and dropped me here. And I just feel like if the whole world and the whole universe is guiding the way and telling me what to do, like where the expansion happens, it just pops up and opens up and happens. That's how all of this has worked. What better like testament to the importance of this work than having just doors just open up right in front of me to be able to help all of these people. We are serving every month at the clubhouse, we serve 250 participants every single month. That means people want these services. They're looking for these services. They need these services. And that's just proof of that? So,
Yeah. So how can people support Cancer Community Clubhouse or get involved?
yeah, I think if you are a survivor and anything resonates about the story, or maybe, you know, getting extra support, come through the doors. We offer new participant orientations as a way to come in, see the clubhouse, learn about the programs. By the way, everything we do is free of charge. I know what a financial burden I went through as a young single adult going through cancer. I would not have been able to access programs if I had to pay for them back then. And so everything we do is free of charge. We have a small fee for Cancer Fit, but we have community partners who provide scholarship to offset that for people and individuals. If you're a volunteer and you have a skill that you think could be useful for our community, that would be a great way to get involved. Of course, we're a nonprofit. We are always fundraising to be sure that we can continue to keep these programs free of charge. So, fundraising is a big deal, participating in our fundraisers that we host. That's great. But yeah, if people have skills, they can just reach out. Our website is a great place to go. It's cancercommunityclubhouse.org, and all my information is up on there for people to contact me.
Well, Natalie, I have loved chatting with you. I think that Cancer Community Clubhouse is such a phenomenal organization. And, I've been working in cancer control for 13 years. And when you came onto the scene and you're like, I'm going to start this and we need this. And I thought, huh, well, good luck. But, do we need this? And now, as I've seen the organization grow and the services that it provides and the things that it does for people in the community, I'm thinking, how could we have done without this for so long? That this is such a necessary thing. And then, yes, we need this. Yes, we need more people. We need this to be bigger. I mean, this needs to be something, that reaches everyone diagnosed with cancer in the area. And so, yeah, I think refer, refer, refer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for the interview, Kristen.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Cancer Talks. Learn more about us at nevadacancercoalition.org and catch more episodes of this podcast on our Substack or wherever you get your podcasts.